your patients, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Ma'am, if you'll step up, raise your right hand and be sworn.
You swear the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
This way. Just all right. Okay.
Good afternoon, Dr. Giguere. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Could you please state and spell your name for the record, please?
Dr. Melissa Giguere, Melissa Giguere.
And how are you employed?
I am currently an independent contractor for forensics toxicology and science.
And where are you in terms of company that you work for? Who do you work for?
I currently work for a company that I own. It's MG Forensic Consulting.
And how long have you been a toxicologist?
I started doing toxicology in 2014.
And where did you go to school?
I received my Bachelor of Science at the University of North Texas, and I also received an Industrial Master's from the University of North Texas in chemistry. An Industrial Master's is different than a regular Master's because I did not have to do a thesis. I had to be working in the field and had to write my paper in regards to what I was finding and doing the lab work in the field. And then in 2023, I graduated from Oklahoma State University with a Doctor of Forensic Sciences with an emphasis in toxicology. It is not a PhD, it's a professional doctorate. The difference between a PhD and my doctorate is I didn't have to write a dissertation. I had to be employed in the laboratory, and all of my papers were based on data that I produced while working in a laboratory.
And how many, I would say, how long would you say that you worked directly in a toxicology laboratory?
Just over 10 years.
And have you been peer reviewed with your work? And have you also peer reviewed others in their work?
Are you referring to peer reviewed and just releasing my data and someone reviewing my work prior for release?
Yes.
Yes, I've done both ways.
At this time, we would tender Dr. Giguere as an expert in laboratory toxicology.
Any questions on that request from the state? All right. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the witness be allowed to give an expert opinion in her field. Like I told you before, you can place such weight on it as you choose to.
And do you have a curriculum vitae in regards to your training, experience, and education?
Yes, I do.
At this time, Your Honor, I would tender Dr. Giguere's CV.
All right. You want her to see it?
No, I just tender.
Okay, just give it to the clerk for 15 minutes.
Dr. Giguere, have you had the opportunity to work in labs that are accredited by the ANAB?
Yes, I have. I did my full 10 years working with an ISO ANAB accredited laboratory.
And what exactly is ANAB?
So ISO 17025 is it's an international standard that people who do qualitative, quantitative results have to follow this standard. It is, if you look up pharmaceutical companies, petroleum companies, they follow it as well. So then you have ANAB, which is a subsidiary more for forensics that you have to follow. And so it gives a little more guidelines to be more for science versus petroleum or some other company that could have ISO. But then it goes a little further and it goes into ASV, which is an American Standards Board, and they produce guidelines and standards specifically for forensic toxicology. So you have a blanket overview and then you kind of narrow down into a funnel from there.
And can you tell us some of the things that are required in order to be accredited? such as chain of custody, such as keeping things stored at proper temperatures and things of that nature?
Sure. So the accreditation is very, the ANAB standard itself is very bottom line. It's very minimum, and it says you have to maintain a chain of custody. You have to monitor your refrigerators, and it should be kept between this temperature to this temperature. But you get those more finite details in the American Standards Board standards, those ASB standards. ANAB is more of a general. It's you have to do this, but you should try and go better. It's the bottom line of what it is. And so you have to maintain chain of custody. You have to document all kinds of everything in a forensic laboratory. You have to, the bench notes that as you're working through a case and you take a bench note, you write down it's oily or it smelled funny or whatever, that has to be maintained with the case file as well. It also goes through guidelines about who's allowed to work on it based on credentials. It goes through who has access to certain areas. It restricts that. It doesn't restrict it, let me clarify that. It dictates how you should document who has access. It's more of a documentation aspect from ANAB versus the recipe on how to do things.
And why is that important?
Forensics is the way I look at it, has three pillars. You have integrity, you have chain of custody, and then you have unbiased opinions. And you have that as a three-pole and a stool. If you lose one of those, then you kind of wobble and you kind of can lose the reliability of the forensic analysis that you have. And so those guidelines between ASB, ANAB, and ISO all help to make sure that stool is good and stable and it can be reliable and accurate at the end of the day.
So I want to draw your attention to the NMS lab report number 231-26889. Are you familiar with that toxicology report?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a copy of that report with you?
Yes, ma'am.
How many reports were issued under that work order?
I just have the one that was originally provided to defense that was dated 5/16 of 2023.
And have you recently been made aware that there was a new report issued on June the 10th of 2026 in regards to litigation packet 231-26889?
Yes, you informed me of that.
I want to talk to you about whether or not when you did your analysis, well, let me ask you this first. Did you do an analysis of this particular toxicology report?
I wouldn't call it an analysis in the sense of science. That's doing actual chemical extractions. I did do a review of the data.
Okay.
Sorry.
Excuse me. I need to get with your terms. So tell me, what, if anything, did you learn after reviewing the data in regards to work order 231-26889?
So when I first reviewed it, what first caught my eye was we can see at the bottom it says specimens received, so that's what I go to look at. Typically, if you're looking at anything for blood,
Sorry. It's
oh,
not working. Just get it. Don't worry, I can use this. My computer doesn't like that. Can I switch? We're going to end up having a problem with it, so don't worry about it.
My witness is not in the feed. It keeps hanging up and she's not able to view what's happening.
That is her internet and her buffering, not. It has
You
nothing
want
do
to
with
go out
internet.
and call her and see where she might be or relocate?
Carter, is there any way that Dr. Midday could just have an audio line? I mean, I'm happy to do it on my own cell phone.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if you'll step back down the hall. I don't know of any way to do a Zoom link and do additionally what we're talking about doing in this trial. Is she somewhere that she can relocate or get better internet service?
She said she tried it on Wi-Fi and also her cell phone. She was in the car driving and drove to the location so that she could do this. She said if she could just be on a phone line so she can hear what is said, that would be sufficient. Is that a possibility?
I don't know how well she'll be able to hear, but we can call her from that phone right there. As long as she's not speaking.
She wouldn't be
You want
speaking.
to come punch in her number? Hit speaker.
Toxicologist, this is Carrie.
Dr. Missett, this is Jean Norman. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
So I have you on the phone at court.
Okay.
Can we ask the witness to say something to see if she can hear?
Can you hear me, doctor?
Yes, I can. It's a little difficult, but I can hear you.
Okay, can you turn the volume up on all the mics? All right, can you state, can you state your name, please, ma'am, for the record?
Melissa Giguere.
You'll have to speak up into that mic.
Melissa Giguere.
Can you hear that?
Yes, that's much better. Thank you.
All right, bring the jury back down.
Judge, Dr. Mendon couldn't hear the report number. Can we just let her know that we're we're talking about 2312688.
231
2688.
26889. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Ms. Howard.
Dr. Giguere, we were talking about litigation packet 231, toxicology order 231-26889 from NMS. Can you tell the jury what sample of specimen is this referring to?
You'll have to speak into the mic.
It's referring to the clear plastic top tube with 1.75 mils that was collected on 2/25/23 at 22:31 or 10:31 p.m. labeled hospital blood. And it also includes a clear top plastic tube, 8 grams, collected on 3/7/2023 at 13:34 or 1:34 of liver tissue.
Now, we see there on this report that number 1 is a clear plastic tube, which is self-explanatory. But could you tell the jury what is ID-003, homogeneous container?
So as you heard from Dr. Methune, that's where you take it and you blend it essentially and make it so you can, in analytical chemistry, you have a thing, it's called an Eppendorf pipette, and you have to draw up a specific certain amount for the test to be accurate and based on validation. And so you have to make it to where you're able to draw a liquid into this little tip to be able to start the extraction. So the laboratory took, I don't know how much, usually it's documented, but you take a portion of that, you weigh it on an analytical balance, and then you mix it, in my experience, we've mixed it with water, and we put it through a blender, better way to think of it, and you hit go and it blends up the tissue to make it to where it is more pipettable for the equipment.
And we see that on item 2 and 3, it notates liver tissue. Do you know whose liver that this report is referring to?
I do not, because the labeled as number is the same. So I would think that I interpreted this when I was first reviewing that the liver was from the same person with the hospital blood.
And whose hospital blood does that belong to?
Based on the review of the medical record, that it was tied to a Jade Benning.
Have you since learned who the liver tissue belongs to?
Yes, it was discussed that it was belonging to the fetus of Ms. Benning.
Have you, well, in preparation for litigation, is there something that NMS will provide to attorneys if the attorney requests that?
It's called the NMS litigation packet. You've heard about talking about litigation packets.
The answer would be either yes or no. Did you get that?
Yes.
And can you tell the jury exactly what a litigation packet is?
Sure. So a litigation packet is a copy of the report followed by a copy of their receiving data, where they start their chain of custody. It also includes the summary of who would have touched the sample along the way. It also includes the if there's a disposal, there's a communication log, anytime that there's a communication regarding to that particular case. Sometimes there's also emails that are included in it that are not in the communication log, just within their own departments. Also included in that are all the testing that was completed for that case. So in this case, I believe it was around 1,900 pages to review. You have every test that was ran on it. You have all of their standards, which are the calibrators, which allow you to put a quantitation number to something. It also includes the quality controls, and it includes this case specifics data.
And did you have an opportunity to review the litigation packet for toxicology report 231226889?
I did.
What, if anything, did you find as a result of reviewing that report?
Looking at the, and I don't have it up here, I didn't bring all of it, but the request was signed to be relinquished from the medical examiner's office on 3/31. It was received at NMS, I believe, on 4/4. With any kind of blood sample or even just tissue, anything that's biological, it needs to stay refrigerated. For multiple reasons. It helps to slow down any kind of growth or breakdowns, preferably to be frozen, but it helps to reduce that. And then looking at when it left the medical examiner's office, I presume it arrived with the body. Part of my past experience is I did medical examiner work, and we would get antemortem tubes with our postmortem samples to look at and compare. And when we would get that, they would be multiple tubes to choose from. And so I don't know if there were multiple tubes in this case, and this is the one that they chose. But it was collected on 2/25, and it doesn't, and as far as I can tell, arrived to the medical examiner until 3/7. So I don't know how it was stored, who had access to the sample. It was collected for medical purposes, so I don't know what was done at the hospital for testing, opening, who had access to it there, how much blood was removed, did they spin it down at all, anything that could have happened to that tube prior to it arriving at the medical examiner's office.
So, thank you. So, are you stating that you found that there was an issue with the chain of custody with this particular sample?
Yes. And the medical records also state that they couldn't identify a chain of custody, which is why they contacted the PD to have the PD come draw their sample to establish a chain of custody. And that was after the sample.
So, did you ever find in your review of any of the materials anything that could establish a chain of custody that would be sufficient, in your opinion, in regards to the ANAB standards?
The laboratory maintained a chain of custody, and that's where the chain of custody started.
What about previous to the time before it got to the laboratory or arrived there?
I don't believe I've had any documentation for that.
Was there anything else that you noticed about this laboratory report that you found issue with?
I notated that there was no seals on the tubes when they arrived at NMS. There was no evidence tape over it. There was nothing to seal it. Not saying it was open and spilling everywhere. I'm not saying that. The sample would have been closed because there was notation of no spillage. But there was nothing over top of the tube and a date and an initial to make sure that it hadn't been tampered with or had anyone had access to it prior to it arriving to the laboratory.
Is that something that ANAB requires of an accredited laboratory?
No, it doesn't require it to be that. It's just required that they document how it was received.
What do you find is best practice when you're dealing with these types of forensic toxicology tests, especially in criminal cases?
In my experience, we've received our samples for forensic toxicology to be sealed, dated, and initialed by whoever collected it for the integrity of the sample.
And was that done here?
It was not.
What type of tubing was the blood or the vial of blood? What type of tubing was it packaged in?
It was in a clear plastic tube, which would have no preservatives. So if there was a dirty collection, meaning they didn't have the site clean and some bacteria got in, there's nothing to even slow down bacteria growth or bacteria formation. And there's also nothing to slow down or retard any of the degradation of any of the drugs that would have been present.
Are there, if you could educate the jury, and we've all had our blood taken before, are there different types of tubes that are utilized to preserve whatever the sample is, whether it's blood, urine, whatever that is? Are there different type of tubes for that purpose?
Yes, there's different color top tubes. Ones that I'm familiar with from working in the laboratory, we saw tiger top, we saw blue top, purple top, and those are all unique to the medical field of what they're looking for to test. So each of those have a different preservative in them depending on what the medical need is out of that sample. The most common one used in forensic toxicology is the gray top tube because it has potassium fluoride or potassium oxalate and sodium fluoride, and both of those help to slow down or retard the formation of bacteria, as well as help to preserve the blood specimen as best that it can.
Now, was this sample actually preserved with the proper tubing?
Not for forensic testing.
So, did you find that as a result of the issues, well, let me ask you this, were there any other issues that you found with this particular vial of blood?
I think that those are the main ones that I found.
At some point, were you able to ascertain the levels of concentration for this particular vial of blood in terms of what it was looking for? What exactly was this test looking for in regards to this toxicology report, I should ask?
So it was looking for cocaine in the products, which is what it's listed as, which is the cocaine and the metabolites. And the blood was also looking for designer opioids, which are going to be looking for your more typical illicit fentanyls and illicit opioids. This did not look for the actual drug of fentanyl.
And so, are you stating that where we see the testing designer opioids, that does not include fentanyl?
It does not.
Did you see anywhere in this particular report where it was asking for a fentanyl test?
I do not, and they also didn't order a general screen that you typically see with forensics post-mortem that we saw in the liver, which is a very broad, looks for multiple substances, and I believe there was a note in there that it was a direct reflex for cocaine and the designer opioids because they were nervous about the volume of blood that they had left for testing. So they directed the sample instead of taking out of the normal flow of how a sample would have been received and processed.
And were there results as a result of the testing for this particular report? Did it yield any results?
It did.
And what results did it yield?
We have benzyliconone, which is the first major metabolite out of cocaine, and cocaine, which is the parent drug, and then ergonine methyl ester, which is a secondary metabolite out of the parent cocaine.
Was there anything else of consequence that resulted out of this blood as a result of the testing that was performed?
So the things that are reported are things that are above their, what they call the LOD, the lower limit of detection, or the LOQ, which is the lower limit of quantitation. I'm not sure, I was not provided their SOP or their validations for these methods, so I don't know if those are one and the same. Some laboratories, their LOD and LOQ are the same. Then what that means is that the instrument cannot look below that quantitation level or that limit of detection and be reliable. And so I don't know if that included that, but in my review of the data, I actually did find that there was some of the metabolites that were present that were just not above the reporting limit, so it wasn't reported, but there was presence of an indication of in the data.
And what exactly did you notice that was present in this particular report that was not reported?
So in this, it would be the item number is 1A1, and I can identify it because it has a 001. So if we go back to the first page and we saw that the clear top tube had 001 in front of it, that is, as I review the data, everything that I find that has 001 is tying it back to that specific item. So I'm not mixing up that with the other liver item or they're homogenate. And so I was, there is presence of cocaethylene in the windows, and if it's not there, then the window should be just a flat line. There should be no coloring of the little mountains or peaks in there. But the
Is this?
no, that's 285.
I apologize.
That's okay.
Let me make sure I have the right one. So, did you find, in fact, cocaethylene in that report?
I found indication of. I will also say though that the if you'll pull up so I can up or down. Sorry,
Sorry.
over to the right. That's the comforter.
Okay.
And so the ion ratios though on this are out, however. And what that is important to also note that even though it is in the window, the ion ratio is out. So it was below the reporting limit and it had another criteria that was also out for the reporting limits. But this was a very low sample and it was very, I don't know what all had happened to it prior to, so if we would have had a full sample, I don't know if those ratios would have been able to be in because I would have had the full sample instead of having stuff removed because I don't know what the hospital took and I don't know what the hospital did to that tube prior to it being there.
Okay. And so did you in fact find a notation or an indication, if you will, of cocaethylene?
Yes, it is present in both windows of the, there's a transition, you have a main transition and you have a second transition, and it looks at, for lack of better understanding, you have my water bottle as one transition and you have this cup as a second transition. You look at this ratio of the height between the two, and that's what it's talking about the ion ratio. That ratio needs to be consistent to call that drug. But just because it doesn't have the ion ratio, it should lend to further testing to look and see if it is actually present or not.
Okay. Would this be the correct?
No, that's 183.
I don't think okay. Sorry about that. So, but you can tell us that it was in fact an indication of cocaethylene in this report.
There's indication in both windows, yes.
Now, you stated that the ion ratio was out, is that right?
Yes.
And so how can you then tell this jury that cocaethylene, there was some indication of it?
The ion ratio being out doesn't mean that the instrument didn't see the analyte. The instrument saw the analyte and was able to generate a indication or a peaks in the window. If it wasn't there, it wouldn't have a peak in the window.
Okay, and did you in fact see a peak in the window in this particular testing?
I saw indications of yes.
Okay. What does that tell you in regard to whether or not cocaethylene was present in the blood of Miss Jade Benning?
As I said, it would just draw me to do further testing. With the ion ratios being out and below the reportable limit, it would definitely cause me to run the test again, see if you can do microing, you can pull it down and reconstitute it and make it at a stronger concentration, and then rerun it and see if we would be able to obtain a value or not, to prove if it was there or not.
So if I draw your attention here at the bottom of page 3 of 4 of this report, do you see where it states cocaethylene here?
Yes.
And is this a confirmation test?
Well, we're looking at the liver. You need to move up a little bit.
Sorry about that.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So this would be a confirmation because we can see that it's the liquid chromatography tandem mass spec. And that's where we're able to get the 2 different windows to see the transitions based on the instrumentation selected here. If this was a screen, it would have been an ELISA or an immunoassay type test.
So before they move to a confirmation test, what type of test do they perform first?
Typically, you would do a screening test, but in this case, I believe it went straight to confirmation. So they skipped the screening test and went straight to this test to look for the drugs.
Thank you. Are you familiar with cocaethylene or the metabolite cocaethylene?
Yes.
What is that?
It's a metabolite that is made only in the presence of ethyl alcohol and cocaine at the same time, and it's made in the liver.
And is there any other way, to your knowledge, that cocaethylene can be formed in anyone's blood or urine or any matrix that you know of?
No, and that's what makes it unique about cocaethylene is the only way it is produced is with mixing cocaine and ethyl alcohol, or what we would call alcohol in our normal language, and it has to be at the liver at the same time.
And there was indication that here.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you find that there were indications, and just so that we're clear, at what time was the blood sample taken for toxicology report number 231-26889?
2:25:23, 22:31 military time, or 10:31 p.m.
And did you have an opportunity to review the medical records in this case?
I did.
And did you find in the medical records in this case an actual urine drug screen that matched the date and time in this toxicology report?
A urine drug screen?
Yes, well, urine was taken from Ms. Benning. Did you find that in the medical records?
Yes, I saw urine was taken. I don't have it in front of me. I don't know the time, but I know it was taken on 2:25.
Did you find that it was consistent with what you saw here?
This was a blood.
In terms of this report?
So this was a blood sample.
I'm sorry, not urine, blood, yes.
So I did see in the medical records that there was blood taken. There were several orders of blood being ordered at the 22:31 in the ER medical records.
Yes, that's my apologies for speaking that. Now let's go now. You were talking earlier that I had showed you the comforter. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And that would be toxicology report 231-29285. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to show you now what would be considered the data from that report. Would that be consistent with that?
Yes, this is a summary page of the cocaethylene.
And the comforter in this case, would that be the comforter that was recovered from Ms. Jade Benning's home?
According to the documentation provided in the literature packet, yes.
And did you learn that on that comforter that Ms. Benning had vomited on that comforter, according to what was told in the facts of this case?
Yes.
And as a result of that, did NMS perform testing on that vomit?
Yes.
And is this a result of the testing that was performed on that vomit?
It's one of them.
And did they find in that vomit cocaethylene or an indication thereof?
So yes, if I can, just to help the jury to see what you're looking at besides just a bunch of numbers. Sorry, you could switch the other way.
This
Sorry.
way?
Yes.
Okay.
If you look at line item number 43 and 44, and
Of the jury here.
what I'm looking at to identify this is the 007 number. And if you would show the cover page so that the jury can see where that
Yes,
number comes from.
you can go ahead, Molly.
Okay, so they extracted at the same time controls. So the low control is labeled 003. The case blank, so that would have been based on documentation. It was taken from an area completely away from where the vomit stain was, but of the same material in which they were extracting for this case to look at the vomit, and that was listed as 004. And then you have a high control, and that's listed as 005. And then they have a lab blank. So they took another piece of fabric or something from a case unrelated completely to this case and extracted it in the same manner. And that was listed as 006. And then 007 is the case sample. So that would be where the vomit would be taken from the stain of where the vomit is to believed. And so that is how I then correlate looking at the data where we see the 007 1G1. The 1G1, all that is showing is the extraction vial that had been labeled so they can go back to their reports and such. And then the 1+99 is the 100 times dilution. And then the one below it, the 1+9, is the ×10 dilution from the original extracted liquid that they pulled off of a material. And then if you look under where it says nanograms per mil, where you see the 2.8, 2.6, we see that there's actually some values there. And if we scroll all the way to the far right, this one actually has the ion ratios in. And if at the top it'll say ion ratios out, yes means that they're out, and then if it says no, it means that they're in. So
Do you see that there?
yeah, so if we down a little bit, up, and then we want to look at the 1.9.
Let me scroll.
Yes, there we go. You can just see all the no's on the side.
Okay.
So
And you said the 1.9?
the 1+9, so vial item 43, go up a little bit.
Is that it?
Up. So the 05 is showing you that high calibrator. So they ran a calibrator at the same time as they ran the case sample to make sure that their calibrator is still reporting and responding the way they intended it to respond when they did the original extraction at the very beginning. So that's just the checks and balance for them.
Okay. And so is the ion ratio that we talked about before, is that present in this particular test?
Yes.
Okay. And what does that tell you that is different than what the other test told you?
That this one would have been reported had it been above that LOQ or LOD. This is a reportable value.
And this was in fact found in the vomit of Miss Benning on the evening of 2/25/23.
It was found on the comforter.
Thank you. Was there anything else of value that was found on the comforter from Miss Benning?
That was found on the comforter?
In the vomit, yes.
No, I think that was it. That it was there, but it's below their reportable limit, and so it wasn't reported.
And what exactly would that have been that was there but was not above the reportable limit?
And that would the fentanyl as well. And so
Is this you look here at the number here?
yeah. So 007, so that indicates us that that is the case sample. We're not looking at a blank, we're not looking at a QC. And the 1+1 is a dilution of some sort that they're doing. I'm not sure what the dilution is, other than because they had to extract it from a solid material, probably into a water with some steps that they did. And then if you see the two windows on the top where it says fentanyl quant, the two on the left is the deuterated internal standard. So that is something that was put there to know that the instrument is responding correctly and is doing what it's supposed to. The two on the right under fentanyl quant is the sample of the unknown. So if you look at the one that's below it, it's hard to read because it's blurry. It says norfentanyl quant. That second one, how it just has a squiggly line and there's no actual peak there, then that's not there. But if
you give us a minute to see if we can fix it so that it can.
That matter?
yes. But that's, you just need to see that those peaks are there. That's what the indication is. If it's not there and it's not indicated, then you would have what you look like there at the norfentanyl. You have to have both transitions for it to say that it is an indication that there is something there.
Okay. And so did you find that there was an indication of fentanyl in the vomit of Ms. Benning?
Yes, and I believe the concentration was very low.
Now, speaking of concentration, as a result of the type of testing that was performed on the vomit, are you able to quantify that vomit?
No.
And why is that?
The method that was used was a detective method, so you can't have the validation that needs to go through to do any kind of method extraction and method development for the instrument. It's a two-part, but they kind of go into one. A validation is at least 16 experiments. It looks at precision, it looks at bias, it looks at extraction, recovery, and all of that has to go into how they are able to report at the end of the day based on the reliability and such of the sample. And so if you have a qualitative assay, it is just that. It's present or it's not. You cannot assert any kind of number to it. And in this particular case, you really can't because the curve failed. Meaning you can't take, a curve is created with known concentrations to make a linear line. I like to kind of help you guys have an idea. If you remember, have kiddos that have elementary school and you were given an X and Y and you had two of them you had to find and you had to count across on your X and up to the Y or either way to find it. Think of that line as the calibration curve, and then the unknown is that X or Y that you're trying to track over to it. So if that curve is not successful and does not pass, then anything on that cannot be reliable. And so then you switch it to qualitative, and qualitative is just there. Quantitative is a number. And so it's present or it's not. You cannot put any kind of faith into the numbers that are produced from that report.
And so are you telling the jury that when it comes to the vomit, there was on Ms. Benning's comforter, that there was in fact an indication of fentanyl, and there was in fact an indication of cocaethylene?
Quantitatively, yes.
Now, the blood that was taken, as we were discussing previously, in regards to the litigation report 231268889, I asked you whether or not there was a corresponding date and time of blood collection for Ms. Benning. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was in fact at the hospital for 225 at 2231. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have an opportunity to look in the medical records to determine whether or not Ms. Benning had been given fentanyl at the hospital prior to that time?
There is notations in the medical records. It says that it was pulled and then it says it was wasted, and so I'm not clear if it was given or not.
And that's something for more of a medical professional to discuss, but
Yes.
I just wanted to know whether or not you had the opportunity to review that.
I did.
Let's now discuss whether or not, or tell me this, what does it take for you as a toxicologist that works in a laboratory to review records if you were to look over someone's work in order for you to sign your name to it? Can you tell this jury what all that would take?
Objection, Your Honor, to the relevance.
May I respond, Your Honor?
I'll overrule the judge. Go ahead.
So in my experience working in the laboratory, we've had people leave and had to review their work and whatnot. For myself to put my name on a report and take responsibility for that work, I looked specifically at the QCs, I looked at the calibration data or the qualitative data, whatever it is, but I looked at the entire case, and many times I would actually go to the instrument and I would look at the raw data. So there's printed computer data and then there's raw data. Raw data is what is done in the software. That's well above my knowledge as it comes off the instrument and it computes it into the computer. The reason I specifically would want to go look at that raw data is an analyst can manipulate that data and then it will print, and you don't know in many cases if that data was manipulated or not. So if I'm going to be putting my name on that paper, I want to make sure that that data is true as it is on the computer. I want to look and make sure that the entire batch had consistent results. So when you look at the lit packet does include the calibration and the controls, but we're only getting a snapshot of just this case. In many of these samples, there was hundreds of cases ran at the same time. So if you take a 35mm film strip and you take out one picture, but what happened before or what happened after it, if I'm putting my name to sign out that case, I want to know that everything was before it, there was no problems with the instrument, there was no delays, there was no other issues, and correspondingly after it as well. And so it takes time to go through that data. Even doing this for 10 years, it still takes some time to review all of that.
And did you have an opportunity to look at the litigation packet as it relates to the litigation packet we were speaking of that ended in 889?
I did.
Do you remember how many pages of documents was that litigation packet?
I believe this one was around 1,900 pages.
1912. Do you remember that specifically?
Yes.
Okay. And in your opinion, in order for an analyst to be able to review 1,912 pages of data, how long would you say that that would take?
Just to review the lit packet and not look at the entire batch would take a significant amount of time.
Okay. What would be a significant amount of time?
To tell you, it took me almost an entire day just to go through just the lit packet myself and to look at everything and look at the controls, look at the responses, look and see if there's indications in the windows, and look at the entirety of just the lit packet. That's not looking at the entire batch.
And would you believe that you would be able to look at 1,912 pages in a fashion that you could sign off on it as having reviewed it in its entirety in less than 55 minutes?
Me personally, absolutely not.
Do you know of any situation in your experience as a laboratory toxicologist, with all that you know that it requires, any situation where that could be done based on your opinion?
It would be difficult to do a thorough review before putting a name on the bottom of it and taking true ownership of that data.
Now, let's say that there was another packet that you needed to review, and that packet was over 2,600 pages. Given the same example and having to review both of those packets in less than an hour, would you believe that that would be possible?
Not to review the entire litigation packet and to do a thorough review of it.
Can you tell this jury exactly how many people actually have to perform testing in order for a toxicology report, let's say for 231-26889, the one that's 1,912 pages, how many people perform tests in that litigation packet?
For NMS specifically, because every laboratory is different, NMS specifically, there was, I believe, 4 to 5 people who handled something in the preparatory of that sample. So from my understanding, I don't work at NMS, but from doing review and talking to colleagues that work there, it starts off with one person who receives the package, and then it goes to another person who does an aliquot. So it's a big science word. An aliquot is a sample of the whole. So if you think of a piece of pie and you take your slice of pie out, you've taken an aliquot of pie. And then they then put the rest of it aside, and I'm guessing so it's easier to maintain and move through. Doing 130 samples in one batch is significant a number of tubes you would be having. And then it goes to another person who preps the sample, and then it goes to another person who does the extraction for the sample, and then someone puts it on the instrument, and then someone reviews it coming off the instrument, and then it goes to the review person after that, and then it appears with Dr. Methune to release the report to the customer at the end. So it goes through multiple hands along the way.
I want to show you an example of both of those packets that I just discussed with you about the review of those packets. Can you see these packets here, or do I need to move them over there?
I can see them.
Okay. And so, this is the data that is compiled in 2 of those packets. In your professional opinion, Dr. Giguere, can you review adequately everything that you explained? All those individuals who had to run through this testing and perform some of the data that goes along in here. And I'd like to just show the jury and orient them to some of the data that you must review.
Objection, Your Honor, this witness cannot authenticate the data, and I object.
I'm not asking her to authenticate it.
I'm asking that anything be shown to the jury that has not been
Okay,
admitted.
you're just asking to show.
I'm just asking a question.
You've already asked that question about the volumes.
And so, this is just an example of all the data that's compiled in those litigation packets. It's not.
It is.
And does a analyst who signs off on this packet to sponsor that all of this information is correct, would they have to review all of this paperwork and data?
In my opinion, yes, before they put their name on it.
Can you do that in 53 minutes, Dr. Giguere?
Not unless you're a speed reader.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
Questions from the state?
Yes, Judge, because of the circumstances, can I have just 5 minutes?
Okay. If you'll step down the hallway, ladies and gentlemen. You're wanting Joe Norman just to speak with Linton.
Yes, Your Honor.
And is that going to be the case? Is she going to need to listen to Dr. Mario Bartolome, Dr. Kelly Larkin, and Dr. Lindsay.
I believe that Dr. Carney is our expert that would be for the other three. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
Dr. Mifflin with this person. If I could just have a few minutes to speak to her.
Okay, all right, we'll take a 5-minute break. I guess hang her up there, she can call her on her cell phone.
Am I talking into the microphone okay?
Excuse me?
Am I talking into the microphone loud enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or do we know?
Okay.
Toxicology, this is Giguere.
Dr. Benning, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
All right, let the jury step down.
Ms. Collins, can I see those couple of lab paperwork that you showed her when she was testifying?
I gave you a copy of this.
Would they be exhibits?
No, they're already a part of the record.
Introduced.
I gave it to Ms. Pendleton.
Yeah, but there was one for the hospital blood, I didn't get that.
No. That one was actually the hospital urine, not the blood.
Okay. Y'all have a seat.
This is the, I didn't show them this. This is the
So you asked her about something, but you don't have that paperwork?
My witness answered my question. You can ask the witness.
All right, so are you needing something, or are you ready?
No, you're
Okay.
Sorry, pronounce your name.
Dr. Giguere.
Dr. Giguere. Okay, Dr. Giguere, do you actually do any lab assessments?
What do you mean by lab assessments?
You know, do you go to other labs and do you perform an assessment of the lab?
When I worked at the laboratory, I did the internal auditing of our own laboratory. So yes, I did do assessments. I don't do external assessments.
Okay, so you are not trained in assessing and reviewing another laboratory's standards and processes?
If you're asking if I am been through the A&AB assessor training, I have not.
You have not been through the A&AB assessor training.
I have not.
But you are here testifying about the processes of NMS labs.
I'm testifying to their data, yes.
Okay, but you are not trained as an A&AB lab assessor, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and did you know that Dr. Mifflin is trained as an A&AB lab assessor?
No, that's great.
So she actually goes to other labs outside of her own lab and she audits them for their standards and accreditation. And she has been trained in that. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Okay. You referenced that you reviewed the first hospital blood and you were talking about some seals. In your notes that defense counsel provided just before you testified, your notes under the report from forensic medical 23126889, you list what samples were submitted, and it says blood, in parentheses, Jade, liver, in parentheses, Jade, liver, in parentheses, baby. These are your notes.
Can I see that? Because I don't have a copy of that.
Sure.
Okay, and what was your question, ma'am?
Your outline of notes, you list blood, in parentheses, Jade, liver, in parentheses, Jade, liver, in parentheses, baby, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so those are your notes reviewing these laboratory results, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. So apparently, you are not aware that Jade's liver tissue was not submitted for testing, correct?
No, when I made that you're referring to, that was my work product. That was just stuff as I was looking at it, and I didn't know if that was Jade's or if it was the baby's, because there's two listings for the liver. There's the homogenate, and then there's the liver. So I didn't know what was what at the time when I made that list. I had since got clarification, and that is an older work product that I had. So that was not updated prior to my testimony for today.
You didn't update it when it was clear that it was only fetal tissue that was submitted. It was documented in multiple different places, but you didn't notice that. Going on to your comforter testimony, which again, you are not trained in any type of assessment for another lab, but would you at least agree with Dr. Mithun that reviewing data from your own lab is a different process than reviewing data from an outside lab? Would
Yes,
you
it
agree
can
with
be.
that? It doesn't take as much time because she is familiar with all of the NMS processes. Do you agree with her on that?
That could be true, yes.
Okay. And Ms. Hollins took all this paperwork and stacked it up. The litigation packet is in no way, shape, or form required or relevant to do a specific case review. Don't you agree?
No, it should be.
Now, you were doing a case review to assist the defense with litigation. Dr. Mithun was looking at testing of a very specific case. She was doing a case review. You don't agree that those are two completely different things?
I think both reviews should be equally the same, because as maybe I am reviewing for the defense, she's reviewing for the prosecution, and it should look at the entire batch and all of the quality controls and all of the standards and all of the paperwork to make sure that there is nothing that was missed within the other people's reviews.
Dr. Giguere, you are very aware that what Dr. Mithun did was a separate forensic analysis. She wasn't doing it for the state. The state made a request that it be done. It is completely different than what you were doing for defense counsel.
We're both reviewing the litigation and reviewing the data to look at the accuracy, the reliability, and the dependability of that data.
Were you in the courtroom when Dr. Mithun testified?
I was.
Okay, and so her explanation for why she did not need to review the litigation packet, you think that's insufficient because you would do it?
Her testimony was she only looked at the case data and she looked at the summary pages. She did not look at the controls, she did not look at the calibration, and she did not look at any of the case blanks that was within that run to assess if there was any carryover issues or any other instrumentation issues. She did look at a very specific part instead of looking at the completeness of the run.
So you must have missed the part where she testified that she had been reviewing the data in the casework for all of the reports since at least October of 2025.
I'm going to object to argumentative, Your Honor.
Okay, she's asking, do you recall that?
I recall her testifying to that, yes.
Okay. And you also said that you were not sure what the dilution level is.
Which one are you referring to? There were several that had dilutions.
On the comforter,
Okay.
comforter samples, you're saying you don't know.
I don't know the factors in which they did the dilution. So when I worked in a laboratory, if we ran a dilution, we had to document. We took 5 grams to 15 mils of water to make that dilution, and we recorded that math. So anyone who was reviewing our documents could go back and know what factors and what dilutions we were doing and how we came to get to that dilution. All I have on this is a 1+1. I don't know the amount that it started with, and I don't know how much of the liquid solvent would have been added to it to allow for the dilution to take place.
Okay, well, that is what the dilution level is. If it's 1+1, if it's 1+9, it's 10. If it's 1+99, it's 100. And that is what is listed and documented in all of the NMS values.
I don't
So
know
you
the
didn't
math.
You didn't understand how to interpret and do the math of 1+99.
No, ma'am, I understood.
Okay, she can ask her question. Go ahead, you were answering.
No, I understand it. It was not documented on where they derived to get to the 1+99 or to the 1+1. I don't know where she started from to get to that. So in my laboratory, when we would do, in this case, like the liver, we would take 5 grams of the liver plus 15 mils of water to get a 4 times dilution. That math was not provided for the dilution, so I don't know where it originated from.
So you're saying you don't know that it was a 10 times dilution and a 100 times dilution, that you couldn't interpret that?
That's not what I'm saying.
I don't have anything else.
Just briefly.
Brief, okay.
Very good. I wanted to just clear something up real quickly. If you remember, I asked you originally, were you aware of who the liver belonged to? Do you remember that question?
Yes.
And what did you say?
Originally, I did not.
And why not?
Because of the way it was written on the submission form and the report, it was had the same medical examiner number. It was later on that I learned that it may have been maybe marked wrong. It was the liver of the fetus, not of the decedent, as it appears on the report.
I want to show you
Switch it.
as it is listed here. Does it say who the liver belongs to here?
It does not. In my previous experience working in a medical examiner office, if they come with the same labeled as number, it's from the same person, versus if it would have been a fetus in the laboratory I was in, it would have been given a daughter number or a separate number so that the testing could be separated.
And that is for litigation packet 231268889.
Yes, ma'am.
And did you see anywhere else where the liver was associated with the fetus of Miss Benning?
Only in the autopsy report.
And I apologize, my PowerPoint didn't work earlier, so I didn't have my paperwork. But you had asked me to give you this document so that you could assign the numbers to the vomit on the comforter. Do you remember that?
Yes, and it was to help the jury understand how I was able to look at the data and relate the data that was produced to the corresponding sample that was ran at the same time.
And
So-
is this the data that you were speaking of?
Yes, so if you see where it says sample ID and then 003, and the next column labeled as low control, and then it has the description of what that control or that item is, that's where I was using that report to look at the data to correspond the data to the appropriate item number.
Okay. And if you were to turn to the next page, because you were citing 007.
Yes, and you see where it's created from the fabric of the area with the visible stains, and it's labeled as the case sample.
Was there anywhere else on the comforter outside of the vomitus where fentanyl was found?
Yes, it was found in the case blank.
And would that be 004?
Yes, and again, the case blank is taken from the comforter, separate away from the stain of which they were testing for the case sample to make sure that the material was responding the same way.
And should fentanyl have any indication on the case blank? Or were they expecting in the test for fentanyl to show up on the case blank, if you know?
I would think no, because it's called a blank, which means it should be negative for any analyte in which you're looking for. It didn't say blank plus fentanyl, so.
Any other questions?
Just briefly.
Okay.
Again, doctor, you were here when Dr. Minton testified, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And she testified about fentanyl being found in a very low number across the fabric. And she talked about the fact that that was kind of noise an issue and it did not mean anything. The level was so low. Do you recall that?
Actually, I think her testimony was that it was present and that it wasn't the noise because she saw both of the peaks in both windows and the ion ratio was in.
And she said there was absolutely none of it in the vomit, but it was something that showed up across the entirety of the fabric. Do you recall that?
I don't. I believe her testimony was that it was
My question was, do you recall that? So you're saying
No.
you don't recall that that was her testimony?
Not that that was her testimony.
So she already testified about this, but you do agree that when you are looking at any of these levels, and you've talked about different levels without giving a ton of specific information, but it is a multi-point inspection. It is not just saying one value, one peak. You have to look at multiple variables that have to be present before it can be reported out. That's the entirety of the standardization and accreditation process.
Object to counsel testifying, is there a question?
I asked her if she agreed with that statement.
Go ahead. Do you understand the question?
No.
You don't understand that when you are looking at lab values or a peak, that it is a multi-point inspection. You are looking at multiple variables and you have to have multiple things present before you can report out that it is a substance that you are finding. That is part of the standards and the accreditation process. If you report it when you don't have multiple variables, that would not be standard process and your lab would not be accredited. Do you agree with that?
I agree that there are multiple facets that need to be met for a analyte to be reported, and that's what the validation process covers. But there are also it also has both transitions in both windows, and I believe her testimony said that it was present in the vomit.
Well, actually, the standards is part of what's in the litigation packet, which is part of the reason Dr. Minton doesn't need to review it, because she's familiar with the standards of NMS. So you didn't review the standards of NMS laboratories, what you're saying?
They weren't provided in the litigation packet, ma'am.
I don't have anything else.
Nothing.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. You can step down.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you, Ryan. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we're going to break for lunch. Just remember what I've said about not discussing the case, forming any opinion.